Well, good evening. It's a Saturday. It's August 9th, 2025, and I am here for another episode of $5 in the World. Another session, maybe is a better way to put it, but this is the book project I've been working on now for a while. I'm working on chapters, short chapters, kind of outline of chapters for a book I'm writing about my dad's sayings, my dad's experiences, my dad's stories, because I think they're inspirational. I think they're instrumental. I think they're helpful in developing a worldview and a resiliency and a confidence to manage just about any situation that comes along, and to do it with a certain joy, a certain optimism about how life can be if you just give it your best shot. And it's not a pull yourself up by the bootstraps kind of thing, or a prosperity gospel where you name it and claim it or anything like that. It was just this idea that if you pay the price, if you know what you want, have some clarity about that, have an understanding what your values are, a certain amount of faith, a certain willingness to work hard and to work smart and to learn and be teachable, that a lot of amazing things can happen. When you put others first, when you look for ways to make their lives better, your life will get better too. It's this kind of spirit that my dad had all the years that I knew him. My dad was born in 1916 and he passed away in 2017. Quick math, he was 101 years old. And I knew him for over 50 years of that time. And it was an honor and a privilege and a lot of fun. And he was a great teacher, he was a great mentor, he was a great friend, and he was a dad. But he was so many other things to other people too. And I always think back to the memorial service, an example. I've been to funerals for seniors, for people that are pretty old. And a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times they're pretty sparsely attended because they'd outlived their friends and family in a lot of cases. And so they ended their life kind of on their own. That was not the case with my dad. Our dad had a gift for friendship. He had a gift for companionship and comrades. And there were probably 200 people at his memorial service. And a lot of them he had met in the last, a lot of those people he'd met in the last 3 years of his life. And it was just a remarkable testimony to something I already knew to be true. And that's why I think in this world that's pretty cynical, pretty hard place to live, pretty atomized. People are kind of meant to, compartmentalize and go it alone, and they cocoon in their homes. You can do so many things without having to interact with people if you choose to or have to, that I think it diminishes us. And my dad had a love for humanity, a love for people, a self-regard that I think would serve anyone well. And so that's why I want this book to be. I know it's, and if nothing else, I just want people to know what a great guy he was. This chapter is one of the lessons he taught me in particular and my brother, and I'm sure he taught other people throughout his career and his life the same one. I don't know if he used the same terminology with everybody, but I know it resonated with me, and I know it resonated with my brother. We both grew up in pretty comfortable situation. We weren't limited much. He was a pretty free range kind of parent, so was my mom. But if that didn't get nurtured, it wouldn't be a far cry for us to turn into arrogant and self-indulgent kids. And I flirted with that more than once in my life, so I know how easy it is to fall into that. My dad saw that risk, but he also wanted us to stretch. So he tried to find the nuance. He tried to thread the needle between letting us, be creative and assertive in who we were and who we were trying to be, and at the same time, learn lessons about humility and service and self-control that unchecked, if he left us unchecked, we could have spun out pretty bad. And for a little while, I'd say we both did anyways, in spite of his best efforts. But because of the groundwork he laid early on, we had something to latch onto and come back to. And This is one of those lessons one of the earliest lessons I remember hearing from him, and it has stuck with me for a very long time. And I've used the premise with my own kids and other people as well. So with that said, I'm going to read this about a little over a page or so. And the chapter is called, If You Can't Take Orders, You Can't Give Them. My dad was an excellent leader. He understood that motivated people perform better than commanded people. He held positions of authority much of his adult life. I rarely saw him rely strictly on the authority of the position to compel people to do things. He didn't rely on that in business, and he didn't even play the because I said so card very often at home. John Maxwell, the leadership guru of the last 25 years or so, argues that leadership based on the title and institutional authority is the lowest level of leadership. It's available, but if it's required, there are deeper issues at hand. In raising my brother and I, Dad had an intentionality about his instilling leadership principles in us. He knew it was coachable. He learned so much about leading people from his dad. Being an avid reader of history, he studied multiple examples of good and bad leadership styles. He purposely shared his knowledge and experience in this area with my brother Chuck and myself. In another chapter, I had related his telling of the Robert the Bruce legend on persistence and resiliency as hallmarks of good leadership. That's one example of the way he would teach it. But that isn't the earliest lesson I remember. I need a lot of coaching in the finer points of leadership. I was the firstborn, and I had most of the stereotypical qualities of a firstborn kid. Precocious, recognition motivated, a bit selfish, and sometimes demanding. I know he wanted to nurture some of these qualities and to temper the less pleasant ones. Like Dad, I read history and biographies at an early age, and I would talk about different generals and other leaders on a regular basis. I could be bossy. Since Dad knew that I wanted to be like the people I read about, he knew what to say to help me let go of the bossy, entitled mindset. He told me, "You can't give orders until you've learned to follow orders." For his proof of this, he would remind me that nobody started their career as generals. They had to start at lower ranks and earn the opportunity of command. What is the first requirement for lower ranked officers? They have to effectively follow orders. I was learning that if I wanted to be a leader someday, I would have to know what it's like to follow orders. Empathy and concern for one's people is an essential element of good leadership. We talk about how the best leaders are the men and women who wouldn't ask their people to do anything they wouldn't do themselves. In other words, great leaders learn how to command by having first learned how to obey. Learning to follow orders builds a necessary layer of humility. Arrogance is on the other end of the spectrum from humility, and history is littered with the carcasses of arrogant commanders. Business meltdowns can often be found where arrogant CEOs rule the firm. Humility offers the best complement to confidence and provides the protection from arrogance. In the course of following orders, a person can learn how the system, business, or organization functions at various levels. The more comprehensively we understand a place and its people, the better equipped we are to lead. We can read so many examples of leaders who failed from a lack of understanding of who and what they were in charge of. Most people can think of a time when they had to answer to someone in charge due to factors other than merit. Dad's expression continues to resonate over all these years since he first started using it to redirect my willfulness. It became a good way to remind me of who I wanted to be and let go of those baser instincts for bossiness. It would have been more expedient for him to just shut me down or ground me when I would get too demanding or temperamental. But he knew that while that approach may modify or stifle the unpleasant behavior, it wouldn't teach me anything. By using the stories of his own life and of the heroes from my books, he inspired me to want to be the kind of person willing to take direction in order to prepare for the responsibility of leading others someday. He approached the issue the same way with my equally headstrong brother. I know that our dad relied on this approach and advice to develop dozens of leaders over the years. He could always see the best a person had to offer, even when the person couldn't at first. And by calling on that better instinct, that better desire, he helped them also learn how to set aside some of those weaker aspects of their character and become good leaders themselves. So that is what I've got so far on that chapter on leadership. There's a couple other things I want to write about in regards to his thoughts on leadership. And I'll do it either as an extension of this chapter or write another one about it. I would love to hear what you think of it. Have you ever heard that expression before or something like it? And what do you think of that? Do you think it's important to learn how to follow orders before you're in a position to give them? And what do you think makes a good leader? Is that an element of it? Is that empathy, that idea of what it's like to be in the trenches, so to speak? Do you think that's helped you lead? Has it helped you be a better parent, if you are one? Has it helped you be a better partner if you're married or with somebody? I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that? And what would you add besides this concept? What else do you think a person needs to know or do or believe to be in a position to lead others effectively? And can you think of times when you were under somebody who's a good leader, or on the other end of the deal, can you think of times you felt like the person you had to obey or had to listen to was a bad leader? And what made them a bad leader? What were they missing? I'm always curious about the ideas about leadership and stuff. Like I say, I've been reading about them for almost, 56 years. I've been reading about leadership, and I just never get tired of it. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think of this chapter. Did you like where I was going with it? Do you like the examples I used? Did you like how I wrote it? Does it need something more? I think it does. But I wanted to get something out yet today because I do want to stay on this once a week pattern, because I think it's essential for me for continuity and to stay with it, because it's so easy to get out of the habit of doing something unfamiliar. So thanks again for coming along for this. Thank you for checking this out, whether you watch it live or in replay. And I really ask that you if you get a minute, share it with other people. They can like and subscribe. It's free. And the wider the audience, the better it is for me, for feedback and to understand what works and what doesn't. All right, like I say, it's a relatively short chapter, relatively short session of this tonight, but I do want to just stay on track. And thank you for your patience, and thank you for flexibility on the timing. I know ultimately it would be better if it was the same day and time every week, but sometimes other things intervene. But again, I just feel like it's important to do it once a week, even if I have to do it as a recording and put it on a little later in the day. It checks that box for me, and I'm kind of structure oriented that way, and it just helps me with my discipline, helps me with my focus. So thanks again. Love that you watch these. I love that you comment on these, and thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for your direction. Thank you for corrections, and even any kind of feedback is good. All right. Well, that's it for today. I'll be back next week with another chapter. I think I already know which one it's going to be. It's going to be about communication styles, because he was one of the finest communicators I ever knew, and I think a couple of things that he taught about that would be a good addition to this project. So I think that's where I'm going to go with it next week, unless something else comes to mind. And again, I look forward to your insights about leadership, good, bad, and the ugly. That's it for today. I hope you've all had a really great weekend so far, and thanks again for watching. Bye for now.